Hey dudes, welcome back to the channel. I do hope you are doing well. In today's video, I want to sit down and talk to you about what to expect, honestly, if you are jumping into Soulframe for the first time. Is it worthwhile? Is there enough content in here? And generally, what's my overlook as someone that's put 40 to 50 hours into the game already? I do just want to state right off the bat that I do genuinely already really enjoy Soulframe. So if you've come here for a bit of a positive confirmation about what to do, then, maybe you can click away now and just give it a try. But if you are staying for the full video, I do want to just state that I'm going to try and be firm but fair here, and also realistic. I love Digital Extremes as a company. I love Warframe. I love Soulframe, but I have to be firm and fair and kind of sit in the middle and give you guys an overview as to what is actually going on. This is a game that has massive potential. It has wonderful ideas, and really, there is some seriously impressive world building already in the game, but it definitely has some growing pains and some identity struggles that are important to acknowledge. So if you will, allow me to break down what your experience will kind of really look like if you jumped into Soulframe as it is today. And just bear in mind, of course, as the experience fleshes out, they add more content, this is likely to change. The very first thing that will hit you is just how stunning the world really is. Soulframe genuinely surprised me with how carefully crafted its zones actually feel. Each area looks and plays like it was hand-built with intention and care. From the very dense forest all the way to the fog-covered plains, it is clearly evident where the nurture has come from. The whole world carries this rich, almost haunting, dark fantasy vibe, which I really love, and it kind of works exceptionally well, to be honest. What I love most is the sense of discovery that the game really encourages. As you explore the relatively open world, you'll naturally stumble across points of interest, small player hubs, siege camps that are filled with enemies, hidden paths, and there are these beautifully designed dungeons that are just as atmospheric as they are mysterious. The world here definitely rewards curiosity, and walking around just soaking in the ambience is genuinely one of the strongest parts of the game right now. And I will say, considering how early alpha, if you like, this game is, I feel like Digital Extremes have done a great job to get in as much of that atmosphere as they physically have at this point. Now, let's address something that is impossible to miss, and that's the Warframe DNA. It is absolutely everywhere. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it makes some systems instantly familiar and easy to understand, especially if you're a Warframe veteran. Crafting works pretty much the same, as does progression. That is very recognizable, and the overall rhythm of leveling weapons and improving your account will feel right at home to Warframe players. But at the same time, Soulframe doesn't feel like it's fully established its own identity yet, because so much of what is here mirrors mechanics, pacing, and progression from Warframe. The system where most weapons exist just to level up mastery rank kind of returns here, and whilst it works, it doesn't really encourage you to bond with your gear or stick with it long term. Right now, I truly feel, as good as Soulframe is, it's still figuring out what it wants to be or who it wants to be, and trying to navigate through that Warframe influence. Now, combat is another area where Soulframe shows a lot of promise while still needing refinement, and that refinement is fine, it will come. The game is in very early stages. I have personally spent time with several weapons so far, from the staff, the kunai, daggers, swords, the magic gauntlet thing that I've got that I don't know the name of, and I can honestly say that mechanically they all feel pretty solid. The animations are flashy, hit responses feel good, every weapon class has its own personality, and what really stands out is the pact system, or what Warframe players would know as Warframes. Each pact plays totally differently, offering unique benefits, abilities, and styles that let you experiment and swap playstyles easily. Now, switching these pacts is quick and painless, and it genuinely changes how you approach each encounter. With that being said, ranged combat clearly right now has a very, very strong advantage. It is easier, it's safer, and way more efficient than melee combat. In my opinion, melee still feels a bit clunky at this stage. It lacks the smoothness or precision you would expect from a game emphasizing close combat. Now, don't get it twisted, you can still enjoy melee combat. In fact, one of my favorite components of the game is throwing my main hand sword into one of the enemy's heads and then whipping it back into my hand and hitting another enemy on the way back. It's just incredibly satisfying. But you will definitely feel the difference from the moment that you pick up a ranged option instead. I also want to address something quite clearly. Soulframe is not a Souls-like game. Despite the name and a few subtle influences in the animations and pacing, it doesn't play anything like a Souls game, really. The comparison really only exists because Soulframe has the word soul in it, so if you're coming in expecting that deep, punishing Souls-like combat style, this isn't the game for that. There is difficulty to be had, but it isn't quite the same. One thing that really genuinely surprised me is how much quest content is already built into the game. There are several storylines, character arcs, cinematic encounters that draw you into this world. Some of these story-driven bosses are especially well done, creating memorable moments that break up the exploration, and the game introduces you to important NPCs and factions early on, which makes the world feel more alive than you might expect from something this early in development. I do have to say, though, that right now I still struggle with the lore of the game. That's not necessarily an issue or a fault with Soulframe, that might just be on me, but I have found that the story delivery is a little bit scattered right now, but I'm sure that will improve in time. There are definitely pieces of something really interesting here, but the narrative threads aren't as easy to follow to me as they could be. It's not confusing to the point of frustration, it's just not fully cohesive yet. Now, moving on, enemy variety is pretty decent at this stage, honestly, with some tougher enemies appearing as you move towards the more northeastern regions of the map. The difficulty scaling feels fairly natural. You'll definitely run into moments that challenge you, that's for sure, but for the most part, you should have a fairly easy time. I will say that the bosses are kind of where the game stumbles a little bit. Some of them really look great and have fantastic arenas that you can fight in, but in my opinion, the AI and the pathing still needs a bit of work. There are times when bosses simply walk straight towards you in a loop or just get stuck with the same behavior, which kind of makes them feel far less threatening or engaging than they should be. Now, the dungeons, by contrast, are absolutely incredible. You can clearly see the amount of time and attention to detail that really went into designing these spaces. As I said before, they are atmospheric, they're beautifully lit, and they carry that dark, mystical aesthetic that Soulframe really nails quite well. The dungeons alone are really worth exploring, even if the boss encounters fall somewhat short. Even though the progression is quite similar to that of Warframe, I will say that the progression in Soulframe does feel satisfying and impactful. As you level up, you'll earn meaningful ability points that you can use to unlock useful upgrades that let you kind of tailor your build. Now, the real diversity between Warframe comes when you are upgrading your actual weapon points and your pact points, as these were more traditionally done with mods in Warframe, but these are clearly spent with ability points in this game. I really love the ability to swap packs really simply by just holding tab, returning to your camp, going into the tent and just switching whatever you want, and that includes weapons as well. We touched on crafting a little while ago, but it's pretty much the same philosophy as Warframe. You gather resources, you craft items over time, and progress at your own pace. I actually think sticking to this business model is perfectly fine. Factions in this game operate in a familiar way. You earn reputation through open world missions and activities. You rank up and gain access to new items and rewards. Now, there's nothing groundbreaking here per se, but everything functions smoothly and it's easy to understand even as a new player. I will say one of the more charming parts of Soulframe is its little varieties of mini systems that it's got on mini games that you can play around the world. You will find yourself charming animals and even rescuing creatures as a whole, and these will unlock buffs that you can then use on your weapons if you kind of think mods in Warframe, very, very similar. These interactions add a real personality to the world. They give you more to do besides just fighting and questing. You will have environmental puzzles to solve with your spectral sight. You'll have random events also pop up as you explore, which just add a bit of variety, making the world feel more dynamic instead of static. Now let's talk about traveling. You're going to spend a good chunk of your time simply just traveling across the world. The map is fairly large for how early in development the game actually is. That's what I was quite shocked about. And for the most part, you'll be walking through most of this unless you can convince other players to taxi you around. Most of the time, this is quite enjoyable because the world is beautiful and the movement feels good, but after a while it can get a bit repetitive, especially when you're trying to find entrances in the massive black walls that split across most regions. These gates can blend into the environment more than they actually should, and it breaks the pacing a little when you're backtracking just to find where the door is for the first time. After a while, you do get more used to it. However, I would say if there's one quality of life thing I'd love DE to tweak, it's making those entrances a little bit more obvious. The performance of the game right now has been surprisingly smooth overall. Whether you're using DLSS or not, the game runs really well and feels stable. The only noticeable moments of buffering or loading hiccups that I've seen have been when you enter dungeons or player hubs, which is kind of understandable given the level of detail in these areas that it needs to process. For a game in this stage of development, the performance is genuinely solid. So to round things up, should you jump into Warframe? So to round things up, should you jump into Soulframe right now? Honestly, it depends on what you're expecting. If you want a fully polished MMO or a deep, mature action RPG experience, this game isn't quite there yet. However, if you're open to an evolving MMO light with a beautifully crafted world, engaging exploration, solid combat foundations, and tons of potential, then Soulframe is absolutely worth your time. Not to mention, if you're lucky enough and you don't want to part ways with any money, you can get keys which will give you access to the game via watching Twitch streams, or maybe if there are some really charitable players online that you can, nudge in the right direction, maybe you'll get given one too. Outside of that, you can straight up purchase access by supporting the Founders Pack movement that they've currently got going on for the game, which will give you access to the game and a couple of keys for some buddies too. But yeah, the game is very playable. It's already fun, and even though it's still finding its identity, the pieces are there for something special. There is work to be done. Melee needs refinement, boss AI definitely needs some improvement, but really, Soulframe is off to a surprisingly strong start. As always, if you enjoyed this sort of video, please do consider leaving a like rating, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you in the next one.